Somewhere past the edge of the map, where the maps themselves seem to lose interest and trail off into pale blue nothing, there is an island that almost nobody has seen twice. Not because it's hard to find, but because it hides. Sailors call it the island hidden by mist, not as a name exactly, more like a warning, softened over centuries into something closer to a lullaby. And tonight, we're going to drift toward it slowly. No rush, no sharp turns, just the gentle pull of the current, and 100 quiet facts waiting for us in the fog. Let your shoulders drop. Let your eyes rest if they'd like to close. We begin, as most good stories do, with water. Fact 1. The mist that wraps the island isn't ordinary fog. It forms because the sea around the island runs warmer than the sea beyond it. A slow, invisible ring of warmth about 4 degrees higher, caused by a shallow underwater ridge that traps sunlight in the shallows. When that warm air meets the cooler air drifting down from the north, it condenses instantly, wrapping the coastline in a soft white sleeve that rarely fully lifts. So the island isn't hidden by magic. It's hidden by temperature, which somehow feels even more magical. As the boat, or perhaps it's simply your mind, drifting there without a boat at all, slips closer, the shoreline reveals itself the way memories do. Not all at once. In pieces. Fact 2. The sand along the eastern beach is a very pale silver gray, almost the color of the mist itself, because it's made from crushed pumice carried down from a long dormant volcano at the island's center. It doesn't burn hot underfoot, even at midday, because pumice holds almost no heat. You could walk it barefoot in bright sun and feel nothing but cool. Somewhere above the tidal-line, the first sound reaches you. Not a bird. Not a bell. Fact 3. It's the trees, a slow, low creak, because the island's forests are made almost entirely of a single ancient species of hollow-stemmed pine, and wind moving through their hollow trunks produces a faint, breathy hum, like the island itself is exhaling. Locals, in the few records that mention this place at all, called it the island's breathing. On still nights when there's no wind at all, the forest is completely silent, and that silence, they said, was somehow louder than the sound. The path up from the beach is soft with moss. Fact 4. That moss glows, very faintly, after dark, a dim green-blue light caused by a bioluminescent fungus living inside it, one found almost nowhere else on Earth. It's too faint to read by, too faint to really see unless your eyes have had time to adjust, the way they're adjusting now. But it's there, tracing the edges of the path like a string of very tired stars that decided to lie down for a while. Further in, past the tree lane, the forest opens into a wide, flat clearing. Fact 5. In the center of that clearing stands a ring of standing stones, worn smooth and rounded rather than sharp-edged, unlike most ancient stone circles elsewhere in the world. Researchers believe this isn't erosion from wind or rain. It's from centuries of mist. Slow, constant, gentle mist, polishing the stone the way a river polishes a pebble, just far more patiently. Nothing about this island is in a hurry. Not the tides. Not the trees. Not the stones. Maybe not you either right about now. Fact 6. No large predators have ever been recorded on the island. Not one. The largest native animal is a small, round-eared fox with unusually thick fur, well suited to the damp chill, and because it has never needed to be afraid of anything, it has grown almost entirely unbothered by visitors. It will simply sit and watch you pass, blinking slowly, the way you might be blinking right about now. Beyond the stone circle, the land begins its climb toward the island's low central hill. Fact 7. That hill isn't actually a hill in the way it looks. It's the collapsed moss-covered rim of the volcano that once shaped this whole island. Its crater long since filled with rainwater to form a still, dark lake at the very top. The lake never freezes, even in the coldest months, because deep vents beneath it still carry the faintest trace of old volcanic warmth. just enough to keep the water calm and soft and never, ever still enough to ripple. And that's where we'll pause for now. Not at an ending. This island doesn't really believe in those. Just at a resting point, the mist curling gently around the hill, the water of that ancient lake lying flat and quiet under a sky that hasn't decided yet whether it's dusk or something even softer. Rest here a while. The island will still be here, hidden in its mist when we return. We left the island resting at the top of its hill, beside a lake that never ripples. Let's drift back down now. Slowly. There's no path here that insists on speed. The trail down from the crater curves gently through the hollow pines, their low hum following you like a held breath until the land opens again. Not onto the beach we started at, but a smaller, quieter cove tucked into the island's western side. Fact 8. That crater lake we just left holds a single species of small, pale eel, and nowhere else. Because the water stays a constant, gentle warmth year-round, the eels never develop the seasonal patterns most of their relatives rely on. No migration, no hibernation, nothing to rush toward. They simply drift, slowly, in circles, for what researchers believe may be most of a century. One eel, one lake, one long, unhurried life. There's something comforting about that, if you let it sit with you a moment. As you step down onto the cove's dark sand, the mist here settles lower, almost at ankle height, pooling in the hollows like something spilled and forgotten. Fact 9. This cove is one of the only places on the island where it rains, and only ever in the very early hours, between roughly 2 and 4 in the morning, in a rain so light and fine it barely disturbs the sand. It happens because the cove's high stone walls funnel the night's cool air downward, meeting the last of the day's warmth still lingering in the ground. A small, private rainfall, laid down like a blanket, and gone again by sunrise. Above the cove, half swallowed by vines, stands the shape of something built by hands rather than by wind or water. Fact 10. It's a lighthouse, or what's left of one. No record survives of who built it, or when, though the stonework suggests it's old, older than most of the maps that first tried and failed to mark this island down. Its lantern room is empty now, glassless, open to the sky. But sailors passing far off the coast have, on rare clear nights, reported seeing a faint light there anyway. Most likely, researchers think, the moon catching the room's old polished floor at just the right angle. Most likely. Down near the waterline, something pale glimmers beneath the surface. Fact 11. The shallows of this cove hold the slow, curved outline of a wooden ship, resting on its side, visible only at the lowest tides. It's been there long enough that coral and pale sea moss have claimed most of it as their own, softening its edges the way the mist softens everything else here. No one has ever tried to raise it. Some things, the island seems to suggest, are better left resting exactly where they settled. If you crouch at the edge of the water, just at the tidal line, you'll notice the sand here glitters faintly, even without moonlight. Fact 12. That's from a tiny, harmless shrimp-like creature that lives just beneath the surface and produces a soft blue glow when disturbed by movement, including the movement of the tide itself. So on calm nights, the entire shoreline seems to pulse very gently, in and out, like slow breathing laid across the sand. Behind the cove, tucked into the cliff face, is the dark mouth of a cave. Fact 13. Inside, the cave narrows into a network of tunnels that locals once called the island's other lungs, because cool air moves through them constantly, flowing out to sea at low tide and pulling gently back inward at high tide. Explorers who've mapped the first 100 meters describe the air inside as remarkably clean and cold, and completely, perfectly silent. No echo, no drip, nothing but your own heartbeat for company. Just past the cave's entrance, clinging to the damp rock, grows a small white flower. Fact 14. It opens only after dark, closing itself completely by mid-morning, and it's the only flowering plant on the island that produces any real scent at all. Something like rain on warm stone. Because of this, it's the only flower the island's fox population seems to actively seek out. several of them curling up near a patch of blooms each evening as if drawn there simply to rest beside the smell. Near the base of the cliff, a thin trickle of water works its way down into a shallow pool. Fact 15. This spring runs slightly mineral-rich, faintly sweet rather than salty, and stays at almost exactly the same gentle temperature through every season. The very few visitors who've documented drinking from it describe an odd, immediate heaviness in the limbs afterward. Not sickness, just a deep, sudden calm, as though the body simply decided, all at once, that it was finally allowed to rest. Maybe that's happening to you right now, too. Fact 16. As night settles fully over the cove, the mist doesn't thicken the way you'd expect. It thins, just slightly just here, because the warm spring water rising through the sand keeps this one patch of shoreline a touch clearer than the rest of the island. Just enough to see the stars, faintly, through the haze above. Just enough to remind you that above all this soft drifting gray, the sky was always still there. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. The cove will keep glowing gently, all on its own, long after you've stopped watching. We'll go further into the island next time. For now, just rest. The cove is behind us now, its faint blue glow fading into the mist like the last light of a dream you're not quite ready to leave. Let's move inland, up and away from the water, where the ground softens into a wide, sloping meadow. You'll feel the air change before you see it. Warmer, somehow, even though nothing here is ever truly warm. Just gentler. Fact 17. This meadow is covered in a tall, silvery grass that sways constantly, even on days with no wind at all, because its stems are hollow and unusually thin, light enough to be moved by nothing more than the small shifts in air pressure caused by the mist itself settling and lifting. From a distance, the whole meadow looks like it's breathing, slowly, in long, unhurried waves. Somewhere above, in the pale gray nothing where the sky should be, you might hear a single soft note. Fact 18. It's a bird, a small, dust-colored one, rarely seen and almost never heard, because it sings only once, right at dusk, and then falls completely silent until the following evening. Ornithologists who've studied it call it, quite plainly, the one-note bird, and no one has ever recorded it singing twice in a single day. One note, one chance to hear it, and then a long, patient quiet. Further into the meadow, half hidden by the swaying grass, the ground grows uneven. Not natural unevenness, but the low, rounded shapes of old stone foundations. Fact 19. These are the remains of a small village, no more than a dozen homes, abandoned so long ago that no oral history, not even the oldest ones, remembers why. The stone walls, worn round by centuries of mist, rise no higher than your knee now, outlining rooms that once held fires, meals, and voices, all folded quietly back into the grass. At the center of what would have been the village, a low stone well still stands, its rim smooth from handling. Fact 20. Drop a small stone into it, and the sound that returns isn't an echo exactly. It's delayed, oddly long and softened, as though the well doesn't want to give the sound back too quickly. Researchers believe the shaft runs far deeper than most wells of its kind, connecting to an underground channel of water that threads beneath much of the island, feeding, eventually, the very spring you may have rested beside in the cove. Everything here, it turns out, is connected, just quietly, just underground. Past the old well, the meadow rises gently toward a line of pale cliffs. Fact 21. When mist rolls in against these cliffs, it doesn't simply pile up the way fog does elsewhere. It curls through a series of narrow gaps in the rock, forming slow, rolling tunnels of white that drift and dissolve and reform, over and over, like the cliffs themselves are exhaling in long, looping breaths. Sailors once called this stretch the sighing wall. At dusk, the air above the cliffs fills with small, pale shapes, drifting rather than flying. Fact 22. These are moths, nearly white, with unusually soft rounded wings that make almost no sound at all when they move. A rare trait that seems to have developed simply because the island has so little to hide from. No bats, no owls, no predators worth avoiding. Just moths, drifting silently through the mist for no reason but their own. Near the base of the cliffs, one particular tree catches the eye, wider than the others, its roots arching up out of the ground before diving back in. Fact 23. Those roots have grown, over centuries, into a natural low bridge across a narrow ravine, smoothed flat on top by generations of small animals, mostly the thick-furred foxes, using it as a crossing. It's sturdy enough, even now, to hold the weight of a person, though very few people have ever had the chance to test that. Beneath the bridge, water moves, quiet and constant, deeper in the ground than you can see. Fact 24. This is the same underground river the old well touches. A slow, cold current that runs the length of the island from the crater lake all the way to the sea, never once surfacing except in the handful of springs it feeds along the way. It has no name. It doesn't seem to need one. It simply moves, patiently, in the dark, doing exactly what water does. And above it all, if the mist happens to thin just enough tonight, the sky offers one last quiet gift. Fact 25. On certain clear nights, minerals carried on the sea wind interact faintly with the moisture still hanging in the air, producing a very soft, pale shimmer low on the horizon. Nothing as bold as an aurora, just a gentle, silvery haze that locals once called the island's own quiet light. It rarely lasts more than a few minutes. It asks nothing of you but to look up. So look up if you'd like to. Let the meadow sway. Let the well keep its secrets. Let the moths drift on, unheard, unhurried, exactly the way they were always meant to. We'll rest here a while. More of the island is still waiting. Whenever you're ready to keep going, let the meadow fall quiet behind you now. We're heading north this time, toward the far side of the island, where the land grows rockier and the mist hangs a little lower, a little closer to the ground, as if it's curling in to listen. You'll hear the water before you see it. Not the sea, but something falling. Fact 26. That nameless underground river we followed earlier finally surfaces here, spilling out from a crack in the rock into a slim, quiet waterfall, no taller than a house, dropping into a shallow pool below. It's the only place on the island where that hidden river ever sees daylight. One brief moment above ground, out of its whole long, patient journey, before it slips back into the earth and continues on toward the sea. The rock around the waterfall doesn't look like the pale cliffs from before. Fact 27. Here, the stone rises in tall, six-sided columns, fitted together almost like tiles, dark gray and strangely tidy for something made by nature. They formed long ago when lava from the island's old volcano cooled slowly and cracked into these neat geometric shapes. The same volcanic history that gave us the crater lake, the pumice sand, and now, this quiet gathering of stone columns standing patiently in the mist. Following the water down toward the shore, the ground gives way to shallow rock pools, left behind by the tide. Fact 28. These pools are full of small, soft-shelled crabs found nowhere else nearby, easily recognized by a faint pale marking on their backs shaped almost like a crescent moon. They move slowly, even for crabs, seemingly in no rush to reach anywhere in particular, which by now probably doesn't surprise you at all. Above the tide pools, tucked into notches in the rock, small gray seabirds nest in loose, scattered clusters. Fact 29. Unlike most seabirds, they don't call to each other, and they don't fight over nesting space. Researchers who've observed them describe an unusually calm colony, birds settling wherever there's room, without dispute, as though some quiet agreement was reached long before anyone arrived to watch. Standing here on the rocks, you might notice something else, too. How still the air feels. Fact 30. The island experiences almost no wind at ground level, even during storms that rage just offshore. because the ring of warm mist surrounding the coastline acts like a soft, invisible wall, absorbing and slowing the wind before it ever reaches the shore. Sailors caught in rough seas nearby have described sailing straight from a violent squall into water so calm around the island it felt like passing through a doorway. Further along the rocks, worn almost smooth, a series of old carvings mark the stone. Simple shapes, spirals, wavy lines like little rivers. Fact 31. No one knows who carved them or exactly how old they are, though the wear pattern suggests centuries rather than decades. A few researchers believe they may simply be old tide charts, marking safe times to cross these rocks. Others think they might have been something quieter, a record of sorts, kept by whoever once lived in that little abandoned village, of the mist, the tides, and the slow rhythms of a place that never seemed to hurry toward anything. As the light fades further, the water in the tide pools begins to glimmer, faint and blue, just like the shrimp back in the cove. Fact 32. But this glow comes from something different. A fine sand-like algae that blooms here only for a few weeks each year, when the water temperature sits at exactly the right gentle warmth. When it blooms, the whole tide pool area looks, after dark, like a small patch of fallen sky, scattered loosely among the rocks. The air itself, even now, stays remarkably mild. Fact 33. The island almost never records extreme temperatures in either direction, rarely much warmer than a comfortable afternoon, rarely much colder than a cool evening, because the surrounding ring of warm mist insulates it from both the harsher summer heat and the deeper winter cold experienced by islands not so far away. It exists, climate-wise, in a kind of permanent, gentle in-between. And just past the tide pools, clinging to the rocks below the waterline, small clusters of pale coral grow in slow, careful spirals. Fact 34. This coral grows so slowly, a matter of centimeters per decade, that the oldest clusters here are estimated to be many hundreds of years old, quietly spiraling wider one whisper of growth at a time, asking nothing of the tide but to be left alone to keep going. That seems to be the whole island's philosophy, really. Let the waterfall keep falling. Let the crabs keep their slow pace. Let the coral spiral on, in the dark, at its own unhurried speed. Rest now if you'd like. There's still more mist to wander through, whenever you're ready for it. Leave the tide pools to their slow glimmer. We're turning inward again, deeper this time, into the oldest part of the forest, the part where the hollow pines grow so close together that the mist gets caught between their trunks and simply stays, thick and unmoving, like the forest is holding its breath. Walk gently here. The ground feels different underfoot. Fact 35. Beneath this part of the forest lies a vast, unbroken network of fungus, threading root to root beneath nearly every tree for almost the entire width of the island. Scientists who've studied similar networks elsewhere believe it allows the trees to quietly share water and nutrients with each other, meaning, in a very real sense, that this whole ancient forest may function less like a collection of separate trees and more like one enormous, patient, breathing organism. Somewhere above, in the deep shadow between branches, something round and pale drifts silently from one tree to another. Fact 36. It's a small owl, pale gray with wide, dark eyes, and unlike most owls it makes almost no distinguishing call at all. Just a soft, low whoosh of air as it moves, quieter even than the moths from the cliffs. Locals once described it as the forest checking on itself, passing silently overhead every so often, as if simply making sure everything below was resting the way it should. Further in, the trees begin to thin, and the ground dips gently downward into a hidden, bowl-shaped valley. Fact 37. Speak even a single soft word here, and the valley's curved walls send it back to you 2 or 3 times, each repetition a little quieter, a little slower, fading like a stone settling into water. Whether by nature or hollow pine or ancient stone circle, this island seems to have collected every kind of gentle echo the world has to offer, and folded them all quietly into itself. The mist, oddly, is thinner down in this valley than almost anywhere else. Fact 38. That's because the valley floor sits slightly higher in temperature than the surrounding forest, warmed faintly by the same underground river that feeds the crater lake and the waterfall, running close beneath the surface here. Locals once called this the island's held breath, the one dry, clear pocket in a place otherwise made almost entirely of soft, drifting gray. As true dark settles fully over the valley, tiny points of gold light begin blinking on among the low ferns. Fact 39. These aren't quite fireflies. They're a slower, dimmer cousin, glowing in long, steady pulses rather than quick flashes, almost like they're breathing in and out along with everything else here. On a still night, dozens of them blinking slowly together can look, from a short distance, like the ferns themselves have quietly fallen asleep and started dreaming out loud. At the far edge of the valley stands the widest, oldest tree on the whole island. Thick, deeply grooved, patient beyond telling. Fact 40. Researchers estimate this single hollow pine to be well over 1,000 years old, making it older than the old stone village, older than the lighthouse, very likely older than anyone who has ever set foot on this island at all. Its low, breathy hum, the same sound carried by every other hollow pine here, is deeper and slower than the rest, a bass note beneath the forest's quiet chorus, holding everything else steady. Just past the old tree, hidden in a fold of land, a small, still pond reflects what little light makes it through the canopy. Fact 41. Its surface is dotted with a rare, pale lily that opens only in deep shade, never in direct light. Its petals so thin they're almost translucent, letting whatever faint glow reaches them pass gently through, rather than simply sitting on top and catching it. Beneath the lilies, in the dark water, small shapes move without hurry. Fact 42. These are the same young of a fish species that spends most of its life far out at sea, only to return every single generation to this exact pond, guided by some inherited memory no one has ever fully explained. They arrive as fingerlings, grow briefly in this calm, warm water, then leave again for the ocean, never staying, never quite forgetting the way back either. There's an old story locals once told, softly, about all of this. The mist, the stillness, the slow returning of things. Fact 43. The story goes that the mist doesn't just hide the island. It rests over it, the way a blanket rests over something sleeping, not to conceal it from the world, but simply to let it stay undisturbed a little longer, gathering all its quiet, unhurried little wonders close, and keeping them soft and warm, and mostly, wonderfully, unbothered. Whether or not that's true, it's a nice thought to fall asleep to. Let the valley hold its echo. Let the old tree keep humming, low and steady, beneath everything else. Rest a while here by the still water. There's more of the island ahead, whenever you're ready to keep drifting. Leave the still pond behind, its lilies closing slowly for the night. We're heading south now, along a quieter stretch of coastline, where the cliffs dip low enough to meet the sea without much fuss, and the mist drapes over everything like something freshly laundered and hung out to dry. You'll feel the ground grow warm before you understand why. Fact 44. Tucked into a low fold of rock here is a shallow, naturally heated pool, warmed by the same old volcanic vents that keep the crater lake from ever freezing. Locals once used it gently as a place to rest tired limbs after long days of walking the coast. A small, steaming pocket of comfort, hidden away from the wind that barely reaches this island anyway. Just above the pool, a narrow terrace of soil holds a small, tangled garden, long since gone wild. Fact 45. Among the tangled green grows a pale, waxy flower that opens only under moonlight, closing completely by the time the sun clears the horizon. It produces a small, round fruit, faintly sweet, that the thick-furred foxes seem to favor above almost anything else the island offers, one of the few times they'll wander this far from the forest at all. As true night settles in, small dark shapes flit low over the garden, weaving gently between the vines. Fact 46. These are fruit bats, unusually small and soft-furred, feeding quietly on the moonlit blossoms. Like nearly everything nocturnal here, they're remarkably quiet flyers, No sharp clicks, no fluttering panic, just slow, looping passes through the dark, taking their time the way the whole island seems to insist on. Further along the shore, the cliffs curve inward to form a low, dark opening. A sea cave, half filled with water even at low tide. Fact 47. When waves roll gently into this particular cave, the narrow shape of the rock inside bends the sound into something almost musical. A soft, hollow note that rises and falls with each incoming swell. Old sailors called it the island's lullaby, and claimed that ships passing close enough to hear it always seemed to slow down without quite meaning to. Along the tidal-line near the cave, pale shells wash up in small, scattered clusters. Fact 48. Most belong to a single spiral-shelled mollusk found in these waters, each one patterned with faint, looping lines unique to that individual shell. No two marked quite the same way, like the sea's own quiet way of signing its work. Higher up, where the cliffside softens into a gentle slope, a thick blanket of deep green moss covers almost everything. Fact 49. Living within that moss is a small, pale butterfly, rarely seen because it spends nearly its entire life resting motionless against moss of almost exactly the same shade, only stirring for a few days each year to find a mate before settling back down to rest again. Researchers who study it describe it, almost affectionately, as the most committed napper in the insect world. You're in good company, then, if you're starting to feel a bit like resting yourself. Just before dawn on the calmest mornings, something quiet and lovely happens along this stretch of coast. Fact 50. As the very first low sunlight filters sideways through the mist, it sometimes catches the fine drizzle drifting off the cliffs at just the right angle, producing a faint, pale rainbow that never quite reaches full color. Soft pinks and blues, barely there, gone again within minutes. Locals called it the shy one, because it seemed to vanish the moment anyone looked at it too directly. Near the edge of the cliff, a single flat stone stands upright, carved with a slow spiral of small notches along its edge. Fact 51. Long believed to be some kind of calendar, the notches are spaced in a pattern that roughly matches the cycles of the moon, suggesting whoever once lived here kept careful, patient track of time passing, even in a place that otherwise seems entirely content to let time simply drift by unmarked. And above it all, once full dark finally settles in, the sky here does something it can't do almost anywhere else. Fact 52. With no artificial light for hundreds of miles, and mist that clears more than most people expect on calm nights, the stars above this stretch of coastline appear in numbers that startle even seasoned travelers. Thick, dense fields of pale light, stretching edge to edge, utterly unbothered by anything below. So look up if your eyes are still open. Let the sea cave hum its slow, low lullaby. Let the moths and bats and butterflies keep their quiet, patient hours. Rest here by the warm pool under all that soft, scattered light. There's still more of the island to wander, whenever you're ready. Let the stars settle a little longer over the coast behind us. We're drifting further south now, where the cliffs finally give way to something softer. A wide, low wetland, tucked between the rocks and the last edge of the forest, where the mist pools thick and slow across still, dark water. Fact 53. Just before the wetland begins, the coastline curves through a tall, natural arch of pale stone, worn open by centuries of gentle waves rather than any storm. Small boats can drift beneath it at high tide, and those who have described the sound of water lapping against the arch's underside as strangely soothing, round and hollow, like passing through the inside of a very old, very patient bell. Just past the arch, a narrow crack in the rocks lets out a slow, steady breath of air with every incoming wave. Fact 54. It's a natural blowhole, though a gentle one. Nothing dramatic, no towering spray, just a low, rhythmic exhale timed almost exactly to the rise and fall of the tide, like the whole coastline breathing in time with the sea. Beyond the arch, the ground turns soft and marshy, threaded through with tall, pale reeds. Fact 55. These reeds grow hollow, much like the island's pines, and when the wind manages to slip past the mist and reach this far inland, they hum very faintly, a lower, breathier sound than the trees, closer to a whisper than a note. Locals once said the marsh talks to itself on quiet evenings, though never loud enough to make out any actual words. Small, quick shapes dart between the reed stems, leaving faint trails across the mud. Fact 56. These belong to another small crab species, one that molts its shell roughly once a month, always leaving the old shell behind in the same shallow burrow rather than discarding it elsewhere. Over years, this creates small, layered piles of pale, empty shells, a quiet record of sorts of how many months a single crab has spent right there, in that one small patch of marsh. Above the marsh, the sky fills, briefly, with a wide, loose gathering of birds. Fact 57. This wetland serves as a resting point for several species of migratory seabird, who stop here for just a few days each year on long journeys between distant coastlines. They rarely stay long enough to be studied closely, but records suggest they choose this island specifically for its calm, windless air, a rare, easy place to rest mid-journey, without expending unnecessary effort just to stay warm or steady. Even birds, it seems, know a good place to slow down when they find one. Climbing back up along the marsh's edge, the ground turns rocky again, dotted with a small, delicate flower clinging directly to bare stone. Fact 58. It resembles an orchid, though it isn't one, and it needs almost no soil at all. Just a thin film of moisture from the mist, which it draws in through tiny hair-like roots pressed flat against the rock. Botanists consider it one of the more improbable things growing on the island, a flower that has learned to live on little more than fog and patience. Just offshore from this stretch of coast, faint shapes sway gently beneath the waves. Fact 59. A dense kelp forest grows in the shallow water here, tall fronds swaying slowly with the current, sheltering countless small fish and the same soft-shelled, moon-marked crabs from earlier along the coast. Divers who've explored it describe drifting through it as feeling almost weightless, the kelp moving so slowly around you that time itself seems to loosen its grip a little. Further along, the coastline bends into a small, secluded beach unlike any other on the island. Fact 60. A quiet, looping ocean current carries loose driftwood and smooth, sea-worn glass specifically to this one stretch of sand, depositing it gently with each tide. Over years, the beach has gathered an unusual collection of pale wood and soft, frosted glass in blues and greens, scattered across the sand like something set down carefully, rather than washed up by chance. At the edge of that beach stands the crumbling frame of a small wooden hut. Fact 61. It's believed to have belonged to a solitary fisherman sometime long ago, who by all accounts lived here quite happily and quite alone for the better part of his life, content, it said, simply to watch the tide bring him whatever it pleased, and to want for very little else. There's a certain wisdom in that, drifting here in the dark. Let the marsh keep whispering. Let the driftwood keep arriving, slow and unhurried, tide after tide. Rest a while on this quiet beach. There's still more mist ahead, whenever you're ready to keep drifting through it. Leave the fisherman's quiet beach behind, its driftwood settling back into stillness. We're turning west now, along the last unexplored stretch of coast, where a narrow channel of rock separates the open sea from a calmer body of water tucked just behind it. A lagoon, sheltered and still, almost entirely its own small world. Fact 62. The water here stays noticeably warmer than the sea just beyond the rocks, and it's home to a small, silver fish that shifts color very slowly depending on the light. Pale blue in shade, soft gold when the sun manages to break through the mist. Locals once considered spotting a gold one, even briefly, a small, quiet stroke of luck. Along the lagoon's far shore, smooth gray shapes rest in a loose, comfortable huddle on the rocks. Fact 63. A small colony of seals gathers here most days, drawn by the lagoon's calm water and its complete absence of any threat worth lifting their heads for. They spend most of daylight simply lying still, occasionally shifting position with the unhurried air of creatures who have never once needed to hurry. Behind the lagoon, the land rises gently into what was once, long ago, clearly tended by someone's careful hands. Fact 64. Rows of old fruit trees still grow here in loose, irregular lines, the remains of an orchard, mostly gone wild now, though a few trees still bear small, sweet fruit each year, dropping quietly into grass no one has bothered to clear in a very long time. Around the blossoms, when the trees do flower, a soft, low hum fills the air. Fact 65. It comes from a small dark bee found only on the island, notably quieter than most bees elsewhere, its wing beat pitched low enough that it's often felt more than heard, a soft vibration in the chest rather than a buzz in the ear, as it drifts unhurried from blossom to blossom. Scattered through the grass beneath the orchard trees, pale mushrooms grow in near-perfect circles. Fact 66. These fairy rings, as they're sometimes called, form as a single fungus spreads slowly outward underground in every direction at once, pushing up mushrooms only along its expanding edge. Some of the rings here are wide enough to walk comfortably inside, evidence of a single organism that may have been quietly growing outward and outward for centuries. At the top of the orchard's gentle rise stands a small weathered stone tower, no taller than the old lighthouse, holding a single tarnished bell. Fact 67. No one rings it anymore, there's no one left to do so, but on nights with just the right light breeze slipping past the mist, the bell sometimes gives a single, faint, muffled toll, all on its own, as the wind catches its edge just enough to nudge it. It happens rarely, maybe once a season, but those who've heard it say it never quite startles you. It settles you instead like something very old, very gently, checking in. Behind the bell tower, hidden in a fold of rock, a small warm pool glows with a soft golden light of its own. Fact 68. Fed by the same volcanic warmth that heats the crater lake, this pool hosts its own private strain of glowing algae, slightly warmer in color than the blue-green found elsewhere, a low golden shimmer that locals once likened to a little spilled sunset kept warm underground. High above, at the very top of the crater rim we visited long ago, something rare occasionally settles over the rocks. Fact 69. On the coldest nights of the year, rare here, but not unheard of, a very light dusting of frost, almost never full snow, gathers briefly at the island's highest point, melting away again by mid-morning. It's the only place on the island cold enough for it, and it never lasts, but it happens, quietly, every so often, like the island allowing itself one small exception to its own gentle rule. Tucked into a hollow near the orchard's edge, a small collection of old, weathered books sits sheltered beneath an overhang of rock. Fact 70. These appear to be the journals of someone who once lived here alone, filled with careful, faded notes on tides, flowers, and the slow habits of foxes and birds. A quiet record of exactly the kind of small, patient noticing this whole island seems to invite, kept safe all this time from the rain. Let the seals rest on. Let the bell wait for its next soft breeze. We'll leave the orchard's hum behind us for now. Rest here if you're ready. There's still a little more of the island left to wander. Let the orchard's hum fade slowly behind us. We're beginning now to curve back toward where we started. Not quickly, just gently, the way a long, slow breath eventually finds its way back out. Fact 71. Once a year, usually in the island's mildest season, a very faint wind manages to slip past the mist entirely, carrying with it the scent of flowers from some distant, unseen shore far across the water. It never lasts more than an hour. No one has ever traced exactly where it comes from. Locals simply called it the visiting wind, and left it at that. Moving back through the edge of the forest, small, quiet movement catches your eye between the trees. Fact 72. A small, pale species of deer lives here too, no larger than a big dog, remarkably calm around anything that moves slowly and quietly, which on this island is nearly everything. They graze without lifting their heads much, entirely unbothered, the way you might imagine an animal behaving in a place that has simply never taught it to be afraid. Along the next stretch of cliff, thick clusters of round, fleshy-leafed plants cling to the rock in tidy rows. Fact 73. These succulents have adapted specifically to drink in moisture directly from the mist itself, storing it in their thick leaves for the drier stretches between fogs. Some of them can go weeks without a single drop of rain, sustained entirely by air that most other plants would consider much too thin to survive on. Ships passing near this stretch of coast have reported something curious for centuries. Fact 74. Several old sailing logs describe losing track of time slightly while sailing near the island, arriving somewhere expected a little later than planned, with no clear explanation for the missing time. Most likely, it's simply the effect of the island's unusually calm water slowing a ship's pace without the crew quite noticing. But it's easy to understand why old sailors preferred the gentler explanation, that the island, in its own quiet way, occasionally asks visitors to simply slow down for a while. Down along the rocks below, a tide pool glimmers with movement of a different kind. Fact 75. Pale sea anemones cluster here, and when brushed very gently by a curious hand or a drifting bit of kelp, they release a soft, faint glow along their edges. Not a defense, researchers believe, simply a quiet reaction to touch, gone again within seconds. High above, a small formation of gulls circles the island at almost exactly the same hour each evening. Fact 76. No one is entirely sure why, though the leading theory involves a shift in wind pressure that happens with remarkable regularity just before dusk. Long ago, without any clocks at all, islanders are said to have used this daily circling flight simply to know when evening had properly arrived. On the north-facing side of nearly every rock outcrop, a pale, papery lichen grows in soft, faded patches. Fact 77. It grows almost exclusively on that one side, avoiding direct sun, which means that for anyone who ever loses their sense of direction in the mist here, and it happens more than you'd think, a glance at the nearest rock is usually enough to quietly point the way. Rounding the final headland, the coast opens into a wide, deep cove, calmer than almost anywhere else on the island. Fact 78. This natural harbor has sheltered the rare visiting ship for centuries, its deep, curved shape blocking nearly all incoming swell. Even in fierce storms recorded nearby, the water inside this cove has been described as barely rippling, one further quiet promise from an island that seems to specialize in them. There's one last small story locals used to tell about a visitor, long ago, who came here meaning only to stay a single night. Fact 79. He stayed, by most tellings, the rest of his life, not because he couldn't leave, but simply because nothing out there in the wider, louder world ever quite matched the particular, unhurried quiet he found waiting for him here. Whether he was real or simply a shape the island's stories eventually settled into, no one really knows. Perhaps it doesn't matter. Let the deer graze on, undisturbed. Let the gulls keep their quiet evening circle. We're almost back to where we began. Rest a little longer. The mist isn't finished with us yet. Leave the sheltered harbor behind, its water still barely rippling. We're nearly home now, back toward the pale silver-gray beach where all of this began, hours and hours of slow drifting ago. But the island has a few more quiet things to show us on the way. Fact 80. Just beneath the surface near the harbor mouth, a slow, steady underwater current runs in a wide, gentle curve, and old sailors learned long ago that simply letting a boat drift, rather than steering hard against it, will carry it safely and calmly all the way into the sheltered cove. The island, in its own way, seems to prefer boats that stop fighting and let themselves be guided. As dusk deepens along the shoreline, the water itself begins to change. Fact 81. At certain tides, usually just after sunset, a fine glowing plankton drifts in close to shore, and each small wave breaking on the sand sends a soft ripple of pale blue light rolling gently up the beach, then receding, then rolling in again, a slow, glowing pulse that can last for hours on the right night. Above the island's central peak, where the old crater rim rises highest, a single strange cloud rests, unmoving. Fact 82. It's a lens-shaped formation, flattened and smooth, that tends to sit directly over the peak for hours at a time, even when wind is clearly moving the clouds around it. Meteorologists explain this as a simple effect of air flowing over the hill's particular shape, but from below, it looks remarkably like the island wearing a small, private cloud just for itself. Down near the water again, half tucked into tall grass, an old wooden rowboat rests exactly where it was left, long ago. Fact 83. No one remembers whose it was. Vines have grown gently through its ribs now, and a thin layer of soft moss covers the bench where someone once sat to row. Rather than rotting away entirely, it seems to have simply settled into the landscape, becoming less of an object and more of a shape the island decided to keep. Overhead, a small flock of birds settles into the tree lane for the night, in no apparent hurry to go anywhere else. Fact 84. This particular species isn't native to the island at all. Records suggest a single small flock arrived generations ago during a storm, and simply never left again. Their descendants have nested here ever since, in numbers too small to bother anyone, quietly folded into the island's rhythm as if they'd always belonged. Near the edge of a small freshwater pond, a soft, low sound rises steadily as full dark arrives. Fact 85. It's a small amphibian, pale and round, whose call is less a croak than a slow, breathy hum, remarkably close in pitch to the sound of the hollow pines. Some visitors, hearing both at once in the dark, have admitted they couldn't quite tell where one sound ended and the other began. Old sailors, in the handful of records that survive, sometimes described the mist here in a peculiar way. Fact 86. They said it seemed to listen, that voices carried differently near the island, softened and gathered close, as though the fog itself were paying quiet attention to whatever was said within it. It's easy, of course, to explain this scientifically. Dense, low fog genuinely does dampen and hold sound differently than open air. But the mist is listening is, admittedly, the nicer way to put it. Strung between two low branches near the old well, a scatter of pale, sun-bleached shells clatters together very faintly. Fact 87. Villagers once hung these here deliberately long ago, and though the villagers are long gone, the shells remain, catching whatever faint air manages to reach this far inland and producing a soft, irregular chime, quieter than any wind chime you've likely heard, more like a whisper remembering it used to be a bell. Just past the well, tiny golden lights begin gathering low over the grass, the same slow-glowing cousins of fireflies from the hidden valley. Fact 88. They seem drawn every evening to this one particular spot, perhaps warmth still rising faintly from the old well stones, perhaps simply habit passed down through generations of fireflies too small to remember why. Either way, as darkness settles fully, this small patch of grass fills, quietly, with drifting gold. The beach isn't far now. Let the boat rest in its moss. Let the chimes keep their soft, irregular whisper. We're almost home. Just a little further and you can rest completely. And here it is again, the pale silver-gray beach where we first stepped onto all of this hours ago now, though time here has never seemed to move quite the way it does anywhere else. Fact 89. Every morning, just before true sunrise, the mist along this particular beach thins for a short while, rarely more than 20 minutes, offering the clearest possible view of the shoreline before thickening softly back into place. Locals once called it the island's one honest moment, brief and unhurried, before it settled back into hiding for another day. Looking down at the sand now, faint tracks wind along the Tideline, half erased by the last high water. Fact 90. These belong mostly to the pale foxes, who seem to walk this exact stretch of beach most evenings, always in the same loose, wandering path, as though simply enjoying the walk rather than searching for anything in particular. Researchers who followed the tracks describe them as remarkably unhurried. Long pauses, gentle loops, footprints that double back on themselves for no clear reason at all. The tide itself, drawing slowly back out now, follows its own familiar gentle rhythm. Fact 91. It rises and falls here more slowly than on most coastlines, taking almost 7 hours between high and low rather than the usual 6, likely due to the shape of the underwater ridge that first warmed the mist all the way back at the beginning of our walk. Everything on this island, it turns out, really does move just a little slower than it should. Somewhere above, in the last gray light, a single small owl passes silently overhead, checking, as it does every night, that all is well. Fact 92. It's the same soft, wide-eyed visitor from deep in the forest, having wandered this far simply out of habit, or perhaps simple curiosity. It won't call out. It never does. It will simply drift once, low over the sand, and move on satisfied into the dark. Beneath your feet, the pale pumice sand holds a very faint, lingering warmth, even now, well after sunset. Fact 93. Because pumice holds heat so poorly during the day, it also loses it slowly and evenly through the night, meaning this beach never turns properly cold underfoot, even in the small hours before dawn. One last small comfort, offered quietly, the same way it offered cool relief at midday, hours and hours ago. Far out past the edge of the mist, where the sea deepens beyond any of the coves we've wandered, something ancient and low moves through the water. Fact 94. A pod of whales passes near this stretch of coast during certain seasons, their long, slow songs sometimes carrying faintly through the water and into the shallows, felt more than heard, a deep, distant hum beneath everything else, the way the whole island seems to hum with something too, if you listen closely enough. Somewhere out beyond the shoreline, barely visible even now, a single tall rock breaks the surface of the water. Fact 95. This is the very first thing most ships ever see of the island, a lone marker rock, visible even through thick mist, that generations of sailors have used to know they were close. Everything else about this place hides itself carefully. That one rock never has. Along the waterline, the same pale plankton from the harbor drifts in gently here too, gathering in a slow glowing patch near the rocks. Fact 96. On very still nights, this exact spot seems to draw the glow more than anywhere else on the beach. Perhaps some quiet effect of current and shelter, creating a small, softly lit gathering point right about where we first arrived all those facts ago. And here, at last, is the island's final quiet secret, saved for the very end of the night. Fact 97. The mist reaches its absolute thickest at exactly midnight, every single night, without exception, before beginning its own slow, gentle thinning toward that brief clear window just before dawn. It doesn't happen gradually. It happens all at once, like the whole island simply exhaling, fully, one final time, and settling completely into rest. Midnight is close now. Let the fox tracks fade with the tide. Let the whale's low song carry on, far out past where we can follow. Just a little further, and this long, slow walk will be complete. Midnight has settled fully over the island now. The mist is at its thickest, exactly as it always is at this hour, wrapping the beach, the cove, the meadow, the old well, the sleeping seals, the whole slow, unhurried shape of this place, in one soft, complete blanket. There are only a few small things left to tell you. Fact 98. Almost nothing on this island moves quickly, ever. Not the tide, not the coral, not the eel circling its lake, not the fox wandering its familiar loop of sand. Researchers who've spent time here often note the same thing, almost bewildered by it. Not one single creature or process they observed seemed to be in any hurry to become something else, or reach anywhere else, or finish anything at all. The island simply continues. Gently, endlessly, however long it takes. Fact 99. No permanent settlement has ever taken hold here, despite the old village, the fisherman's hut, the abandoned rowboat, the solitary visitor who stayed his whole life. Something about the island seems to prefer being visited rather than owned. Passed through, rested in, remembered softly, rather than filled up and kept. And the last one, saved for right now, right as your own eyes are likely closing. Fact 100. The mist that hides this island has never once, in any record, in any story, in any sailor's log across all the centuries anyone has tried to write this place down, the mist has never fully lifted. Not once. Not completely. It thins sometimes just before dawn. It clears briefly in small patches, near a cove or a beach or a quiet golden pool. But it always comes back, settling low and warm and unhurried over everything, keeping this whole soft, sleepy island exactly as hidden, and exactly as safe, and exactly as restful as it has always been. Which is, in the end, the whole reason for its name. The island hidden by mist isn't lost. It's simply resting. And so now are you. Good night.